we talked about the importance of web basics, meaning who is going to host your site and your data. What is your domain name going to be? And does it reflect what you want others to believe your brand is? Is it easy? Is it simple to remember? And then finally, what platform are you going to use? So those are really important questions that you need to get done and get the basics across before we start to think about ever designing a site. So that said, I want to start focusing in on two really important factors when it comes to web design. There's nothing more important than having a good user interface, meaning it's easy to use, it's intuitive for consumers. They're going to come to your site, they're going to not have to think about where to navigate, and it's visually pleasing to them. Basically, what you want to do is take the thought process out of their minds so that they can focus on the value of your products and services, so that they can make a quick and easy decision to get your product and service. So a couple of concepts in this area are heuristics, which comes from the area of consumer behavior. As you know, if you've taken my consumer behavior class, we spend a lot of time on the book Nudge, and it's around behavioral economics. So web interface design is much of it is based on these theories that come from consumer behavior. And then we're also going to focus on user interface design, is user focus as opposed to what we believe somebody would want to see. And to get a good user interface design, we actually spend a lot of time watching consumers work with our products and try to navigate our design from what their behavior is. Before we do that, I wanted to sneak back just a second for branding. There were a few things that I found that I wanted to provide you some inspiration again. So we have the brand identity completed for your clients. I want you to think about some concepts that I think are important as we start to think about designing a good user interface in a visually pleasing design for that. So look here at this experiment. This is Gregory's visual assumption theory, which is based on perception. And take a look at the mask here. So the mask is a regular mask where it protrudes on one when you see the Charlie Chaplin face, and then it's hollow on the inside. But as we visualize this through our own 2D retinas, it looks like the face is popping out at us when it is actually inverted. So that what I wanted to point this out is that visual perception relies on top-down processing, meaning we can't see on a website a three-dimensional figure. So what we see is 90% lost. Our mind plays a trick on us, and we really need, in order for us to visually store information, we have to provide additional surroundings to get our brain to understand this. So this is just fundamental that we can translate into visual design on a website. So I also wanted to point out too, in terms of color palettes, color is really important on a website, not only from a brand identity, but there are certain colors that evoke emotion in us and make us feel good or bad. So we want to attempt to create harmonious, pleasant colors and contrast each other that avoid chaos or the feeling of getting lost. There's some websites that I just don't like because I feel like chaotic just in the visual, the colors that they use. People remember patterns of 2 colors or fewer. So I'm going to make you think really long and hard about, it's great to have this beautifully designed website, but if people can only consume 2 colors without getting fatigued, or 4 colors, think about that as you're doing your design, and remember that as you go back to your brand identity, because remember I had you select a primary and secondary color. That's based on theory. And many of us want to have colors of the rainbow and have it look beautiful. And, maybe there's a time and a place for that. But definitely on web design, we want to make sure that we don't fatigue the user. We also need to make sure that the background isn't so busy. There's enough white space that we don't lose the customer in terms of focus and attention and getting them to do what we want to do, the overall objective. If it's to read, to learn more, or to buy, let's not have the design get in the way of telling the story and getting them to buy. So I just wanted to also, just note that color has been studied over and over again. We spent a little bit of time, but it really does provide a visual perception of your brand based on that psychology we talked about before. There's also been a number of studies done in terms of blurriness, or portrait, like if you were taking a beautiful portrait on your iPhone versus just the regular setting. If you were to recall, if you were to ask somebody to recall an ad or something that you had put out there, observers are much more likely to recall something that is clear than blurry. So our portraits are beautiful and everything, but we have to have clarity so we can cement that image in the mind of the buyer. The same way in colors. So if you have colors that are blurred or meaningful, a red color is going to mean bold. The black is, I mean, these pictures are really hard to see to begin with. Maybe not so easy. And the blue is going to be cool. So remember that the role of color and the scene together is going to create a perception. So if you look at the 3 rooms, you might automatically think that, oh, the blue room feels very comforting. The red room might be, a little bold, a little chaotic. And for me, the black room in this picture is just darn right scary. I'm going to avoid that one. So there's also, think about the range of abnormality too. So sometimes we don't always pay much attention to how things are pixelated or the colors that are coming through. So it's really important that we try to get as much as possible. What you see is what you get. And not just in terms of product sales, because you want the customer to understand specifically what they're buying and have a very realistic, transparent portrait of that. But these types of images that are clear and focused will trigger and cement the psychology, the memory. My love of consumer behavior had to bring it back. Sorry. Also, those of you who are interested in branding, I know I've given you some different websites, some free tools. A few others, we didn't get a whole lot of time to spend on canva.com or canva.org. Go there and play around. You can do some mood boards to help you figure out visually what you want the design to be for your brand. And this would be a good tool for you to give a web designer so they can get an idea of your imagery, your color palette, what you like, what your dislikes are, so that they can blend that with their talents without pushing the envelope too much. There's also options out there for logo design if you're interested. And then a lot of people use Canva for social media posts. It's super easy to use. They've got templates out there and they're free, so why not try it? So canva.com, just a little plug for them. Last time, remember, I assigned to you the Dr. G Consulting Biz Web Strategy activity. Please remember to complete that by Friday at 11:59. We also have a web assignment coming up. So I'm going to introduce this to you in another video, but please look at it. It is out there. It is populated in Module 4 in the web presence. What we're going to talk about today will be a lot of what's going to be in that assignment. The first part of the assignment is going to be a heuristic evaluation, and that you are going to be consultants. You're going to be evaluating your client's website, or you're going to be designing a website based on heuristic principles. The second thing you're going to do is either build a website or evaluate a website. So I will talk about that in another video, but I want you to go out there and take a look at it before that. So let's transition now into the concept of heuristics. So heuristics is a concept, comes from behavioral economics, and what we try to do is create mental shortcuts to help you make a decision so that the experience you have is very flowing and natural, and you don't have to think about it. So we're going to nudge you towards a decision. So again, you've already identified your target audience. You have a brand identity. You're now working through, what's a domain name going to be? You're deciding on a platform. You're looking at who's going to host your site. Now it's time for you to optimize your website. And one way to do that is through a heuristic evaluation. So I have put together a toolkit for you that puts together Nielsen's, and we'll talk about him, user design. I was very fortunate to work for a company that had a user design organization that did all of the user design for web, did all user design for every product that was made, and we focused on those principles of heuristics, which you're going to learn about today. So what is a heuristic? A heuristic is a cognitive bias. It is a mental shortcut that we use to navigate our way through making a decision. We call these rules of thumbs. We call these educated guesses, profiling, common sense, intuition. But we learn heuristics in a number of different ways. Sometimes a nudge or something we learn over time, like when you walk to throw out your garbage, you might see a recycle label on a garbage bin. We are encouraging you or nudging you to put the right trash in the right bin. We encourage you to learn more or to buy now by the color of a button and the placement of the button on the website. There are foundational principles in user design that we use based on heuristics that you have already become accustomed to and probably aren't even aware of it today. So there's something called an availability heuristic, and that is that people easily remember events that inflate people's probability and judgments. So let's take this for example. So the COVID virus can be very deadly for some people. Unfortunately, it has hit my family, and I'm very touchy about the subject because I know there's lots of different political opinions. But we tend to, as people, focus on what is the information that is available to us today. So think about an airline flight. So most of us travel. If you've been on an airplane, I have, I can't even tell you, 1,000 times, probably more than 1,000 times for business. You don't really think about the safety of an airline flight unless it's brought to your mind that there was an airline crash. And so if that piece of information wasn't brought to my head that there's an airline crash, I'm not going to think about it. If I go about my day really not paying attention to those people who were impacted by the coronavirus, probably not going to think about it. But if it happens to you personally, it's going to be what we would call an availability heuristic. It's what we see that's in the here and now and the perceptions that we make due to that. Other ideas would be, okay, so when do you buy a lottery ticket? Most people buy lottery tickets after somebody has won the big lottery. $528.8 million. I'm going to go out there and buy a ticket tomorrow because we have in our head that winner, somebody just won, it's my chance. So this is just sometimes we take information and we inaccurately deem it significant because what are the odds? There's some of the availability heuristic is also things that we use in a marketing context on fear of missing out. So we will use this over and over again. 10 left. I just bought a seat to Minneapolis on a flight. 2 more left at this price. If you don't get it now, it's going to be gone in 30 seconds. Don't miss out. 40% off. Black Friday sale. We do this to get you to believe that there is a limited supply, it's scarce, and we want you to instill a fear of missing out. So here is my example. This was from last year. I could have used the one I used yesterday of the price of the product in the main cabin versus the Comfort Plus versus the first class. There's only one left at $393, but there's only 2 left at $824. Looks like you can get as many as you want in the Comfort Plus. You can deem whatever you want possible there, but if you want to get on that plane and you want to get it at $393, you better act now. And trust me, I just bought plane tickets and I almost got stuck having to pay like $2,000 for a first class seat. But I didn't, luckily. I waited another day. There is something called a representative bias, and what this is we make assumptions based on our perceptions of things that we see from our experiences in the past. So you may have seen this before, but if you look at the picture of Reese Witherspoon in Legally Blonde versus the young lady, her nemesis, who they're both after the same man, some loser who got into Harvard because, he had the legacy there and, very privileged young man. And you've got the blonde who got into Harvard in her own right, and you got the smart other lady who got into Harvard on her own right. Which one, if you look at the picture, do you think got into Harvard? Well, you might think that the more preppy woman did. But what we do is we create a false fallacy on something based on a judgment that we have from past experiences, from media, from whatever that is. It's called a representative bias. There is something called a decoy. And when do we use a representative bias? When we know our target audience. We know you well enough, we're going to serve up images that resonate with you. And if we want you to do something different, or if we want you to oppose something, we're going to serve something that doesn't resonate with you. So it's just simple marketing. The decoy effect is when you change an option of A or B in favor of B when C is presented. So I know that's a mouthful. So if you were presented with an iPhone for $914, and then you were presented an iPhone for $10,054, you're going to go, well, heck no, I'm not going to spend an extra $100 on that second iPhone. But then when you get the third at a little bit higher price, the vast majority of people will select B, even though B may not be the best option. We play with this all the time. It's called an anchoring effect as well, the decoy effect. Or here's the anchor. Common human tendencies to rely too much on the first piece of information we see. So if you look at the MacBook Air here, the MacBook Air is used as an anchor price. It's in over $1,000. So this is an ad for PC-based PC-based laptops. So they're going to show you the very most important price of a product first. And you're going to anchor that in your head and think everything after that is going to be reflected upon this price. So they show you the expensive MacBook Air, and then they compare the far lesser expenses with the features of the other products. So we play with this all the time, and we do testing to see, should the anchor price be on the end? Should it be the first one you see? But definitely a really important piece of marketing. So anchoring bias is also showing you the savings. I just actually used this one today. So you can, in this case, we're going to show you what the manufacturer's price is, or the regular price. So if you wanted to stay at the MGM Grand Hotel and Casino in Las Vegas before you get on your airplane to go Minneapolis, you might get a good deal at $65 because they still can't get the rooms filled with the coronavirus. But they're going to show you what you would typically pay, the $299. So you looks like you're getting a good deal. So that is an anchoring bias. Just some more. Sometimes we use words in addition to price. So you've got the premium, you've got the standard, essential, and free. And oftentimes, based on who you are, we're going to tell you which one we think you're the best fit for. So we will show the most expensive first, and then we will show you which one is most applicable to you. This is just a consumer behavior nudge to get you to make a decision. It's based on testing price, testing where you put things first, second, third, or fourth, and guiding the person to make a decision based on their needs. Everybody might get the same one. It might be different based on your target audience. If we know that you are, an early adopter, or you have a higher income, or you're somebody who really likes to get the prestigious piece, you're gonna resonate with the premium language. Suggest a price. This is the same concept. Again, we're going to help you make a decision by making a recommendation for you, so you don't have to take your time and energy to do that. So these are basic consumer behavior heuristics based on behavioral economics. They're tried and true. We use them over and over again. We test through A/B testing which one is best for a particular target audience. So using those principles, the foundations of heuristics, we use them into how do we design experiences from a web perspective. So usability heuristics are not just used on websites, they're also used in product design. And basically what it is to make sure that our products, our experiences, our web experiences are aligned to how users naturally go about their day in making a decision. The first is visibility of system status. And that is, I know what's going on. So when you're on a web page, you should always know where you are and how far you are in the process. So we use cues such as the Domino's Pizza Tracker to let you know we got your order. We're putting the pepperoni on the pizza. We're going to put it in the oven now. It's baking. It's out of the oven. It's on your way to you. It's 3 feet away. Because as people, we naturally need to know where we are in the process. We are orderly. This is something that we do in web design to help people understand. So if you've ever uploaded, like I've been uploading videos all day long to YouTube, it will tell me much longer I have, how far along I'm in the process. You'll have approximately 15 minutes before it's uploaded. So this is what we do to help people feel a comfort level that you're not lost. Here is where you are in the line. Second thing, I know what you're talking about, the match between the system and the real world. So back in the olden days when we started web design, we had all these codes like a 404 code and a 609 code and an error code, and nobody knew what the heck these meant except for people who, created this stuff. So what we try to do is visually represent what we want you to do. so that you have a comfort level that, yeah, I'm speaking the same language. So here you've got an empty trash can and a full trash can. So you still have files in your trash. Do you want them? And then after you empty them, it's empty. Skype will tell you, oops, there's a problem with your link, instead of saying 404 error or can't find that. They're playing with a little humor there and telling you exactly where you've gone wrong. And chatbot, how can I help you today? Hi, my name's Kristy. I have a question. How can I help you? So this is a mesh between the visual system and the system that is in the background doing the functionality. User control or freedom. Okay, there's nothing more irritating. I don't know about you. There's nothing more irritating when you cannot get out of an advertising on YouTube, or you get a pop-up box, or you can't find the X to get out of it. I hate it when websites do this. It's so annoying. So what we try to do is you need to provide people an emergency exit. And a lot of this is just using good navigation. So provide an emergency exit. Do you really want to delete that or not? So that's another one. Consistency and standards. Familiarity is important to me. Follow platform conventions. There is a website that I use to be unnamed every single day that does not follow platform conventions. And I have used this now for probably a year. And I always get stumped because the buttons are not buttons. The buttons are hexagrams. It's just not intuitive to me. It wasn't built in a way where you're using navigational consistent standards that have been used. So the good thing about using a design that comes from WordPress or some other system is they're really good about navigation and understanding user behavior. So just make sure that you are using platform best standards conventions. Don't be goofing up things and putting something crazy at the top or putting a button at the bottom. We all learn to fall to we want people to be able to mimic the shortcuts that they already know without making them frustrated, like I always am. Okay, so consistency, is it familiar to me? So the navigation bar and the footer needs to be consistent. If you have a cart, the cart's on the right hand side. The cart is going to show you whether there's something in it or not. You're going to know that if you click on the logo, you're always going to go back to the home page. There's clear standards. You will always have a search bar at the top of your navigation to help navigate somebody find where they're going. If these things are out of whack, if the buttons aren't used appropriately, if you're not using standard iconography, it's a real hassle for users and they might just quit using you. That said, I already talked a little bit about error prevention, so make sure if you're going to delete something or take somebody off on another path that you give them you give them a cross check. And do you really want to do that? Recognition rather than recall me. So minimize the user's memory by making objects and options available to them. So those of us who stream, or those of us who go back to a website, it's always great that you don't have to remember to put your username and password in. That if you are going to do some sort of security identity, it's going to be easy. If I'm going to Amazon, it's going to show what I purchased in the past. If I'm watching Netflix, it gives me an option as who's watching. Is it me? Is it mom? Is it dad? Is it Owen? Is it Eli? Help me think through that without having me have to navigate for me. Flexibility and ease of use. So we use accelerators that can speed up actions for our decisions. So like if you go to an e-commerce site, you can see what you see is what you get. You can see the front of the coat, the back of the coat. You can really make a good decision. You're going to see what's available and what's not in terms of size and color. You want to be able to allow users to design their own experiences if they want. So this is just making it flexible, easy to use if you're navigating a website. Give people the options to turn on and off what they don't like so they can create something on their own. Aesthetics and minimal design. Dialogue should not contain information that is irrelevant or rarely needed. Do not have a busy website. You can tell a story, and many stories are told through videos now on the homepage, and that's great, but make sure that it's not too busy and it doesn't interfere with your main message. Make it clean, make it easy to read, because too much stuff is going to get in the way of what you want to accomplish with your objective, is to getting that person to do what they want you to do. Whether it's buy now, learn more, read your stuff, share, like. Don't get in the way of the user's ability to make a decision. Make it clean. Don't fatigue them. Help users recognize and diagnose problems. It's almost like the error prevention that we talked about earlier. So remind them, oh, you know what, you're offline. Don't just tell them you can't get in or something went wrong. Tell them what wrong. Oh, whoops, it looks like your internet service isn't working. Or, oh, I couldn't find that page. Or you know what? I'm sorry, your account is temporarily unavailable. I don't know what that means, but it doesn't sound good. So don't use codes. Use pictures and soft things to help people navigate and work through their issue. Help and documentation is so important on especially complicated websites. Like if you have a product line with lots of different things like Apple or Amazon, how do you talk to customer service? What if my package didn't come? Where do I get help? Am I going to be able to speak to a person, or is the chat bot going to be so good they're going to help me navigate through a situation? So this is just a very important piece of the whole web experience, is how do you help people when they have an issue? That was a lot of information, and I know you may have to go back and look at it a few times. The heuristic evaluation tool will help you, but I want you to think about, these are really tried and true user experience design best practices that you should use when you're building a website or when you're evaluating a website for someone else. So I want you to think about, how are you going to use heuristics in website optimization? So I hope you have a wonderful week. Please make sure to get your activity in. I'm going to try very hard to get the website assignment video to you. Otherwise, please look through Canvas, and let me know if you have any questions via email, preferably. However, if it is really important or urgent, you can call me. Or if you want to talk to me face to face, I'll set up a Zoom meeting. So thank you all for bearing with me this week. I hope you have a wonderful week, and I look forward to seeing you next week. Take care.